You wake up in the morning and check your phone. You browse social media, send messages, maybe watch a video. What you don't realize is that you've just interacted with Linux dozens of times before even getting out of bed. The servers running Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Netflix, and YouTube all run on Linux. Your smart TV, your car's entertainment system, even your microwave might be powered by this invisible giant. Yet most people have never heard of it. This is the story of how a 21-year-old Finnish student accidentally created the most important piece of software in human history. A software that now runs 96% of the world's web servers, powers every Android phone, controls the International Space Station, and makes the internet possible. This is the story of Linux, and it begins in a small apartment in Helsinki on a cold winter day in 1991. Linus Benedict Torvalds was not your typical computer science student. While his classmates were busy with parties and student life, Linus spent his evenings tinkering with his new Intel 386 computer. He was frustrated with the limited options available to him. The university used expensive Unix systems that cost thousands of dollars, far beyond what a student could afford. MS-DOS was too simple for serious programming work. He needed something powerful, something that could handle real computing tasks. The idea came to him during one of those long Helsinki nights when the sun barely rises above the horizon. Why not create his own operating system? It seemed like an impossible task for one person, but Linus had something special. He wasn't afraid to try. He started working on what he called a terminal emulator that could access the university's Unix systems from his home computer. On August 25th, 1991, Linus posted a now famous message on the compos.minix newsgroup. He wrote, "Hello, everybody out there using Minix. I'm doing a free operating system as a hobby. It won't be big and professional like GNU, just for me to learn 386 task switching." He asked for feedback and suggestions, having no idea that he had just announced the birth of the most influential software project in history. The first version of Linux was incredibly basic. It could barely do anything useful. But Linus made a decision that would change everything. He released the source code for free. Anyone could download it, study it, modify it, and share their improvements. This was revolutionary thinking in 1991, when most software companies guarded their code like precious secrets. Within weeks, programmers from around the world started downloading Linux and sending improvements back to Linus. A programmer in Germany fixed a bug. A student in California added a new feature. A developer in Japan improved the memory management. What started as one person's hobby project became a global collaboration involving hundreds of volunteers. The early days were chaotic but exciting. Linus would release new versions every few weeks, each one better than the last. The Linux community grew rapidly through internet bulletin boards and mailing lists. These were the early days of the internet, and Linux was one of the first truly global software projects. Programmers who had never met in person were working together to build something amazing. By 1992, Linux had caught the attention of serious computer users. It was still difficult to install and use, requiring deep technical knowledge. But for those who could handle it, Linux offered something unique: complete control over their computer. Unlike Windows or Mac systems, Linux users could see exactly how their operating system worked and change anything they didn't like. The big breakthrough came in the mid 1990s when several companies started creating user friendly versions of Linux. Red Hat, founded in 1993, made Linux easier to install and use for businesses. SUSE, started in Germany, focused on desktop users. Debian, created by volunteers, emphasized stability and free software principles. These distributions, as they were called, took Linus's basic system and added thousands of programs to create complete operating systems. The business world started paying attention when major technology companies began supporting Linux. In 1998, IBM made a stunning announcement. They would invest $1 billion in Linux development. This was huge news that shocked the technology industry. IBM, one of the most conservative companies in computing, was betting big on this free operating system created by volunteers. Oracle, the database giant, quickly followed with their own Linux support. Intel began optimizing their processors for Linux systems. Dell and HP started selling computers with Linux pre-installed. What had started as a student project was now backed by some of the biggest names in technology. The timing couldn't have been better. The late 1990s brought the dot-com boom, and the internet was exploding in size. Companies needed powerful, reliable servers to run their websites, and Linux was perfect for this job. It was stable enough to run for months without crashing, secure enough to protect valuable data, and best of all, it was free. Google, founded in 1998 by Larry Page and Sergey Brin, built their entire search engine on Linux servers. They needed to process millions of web searches every day, and Linux gave them the power and flexibility they needed. Amazon chose Linux to run their online bookstore, which would eventually become the world's largest e-commerce site. eBay, Yahoo, and countless other internet pioneers all chose Linux as their foundation. The success stories kept coming. The movie industry discovered that Linux was perfect for creating special effects. Industrial Light and Magic used Linux to create the stunning visuals in Star Wars Episode 1. Pixar used Linux clusters to render the complex animations in Toy Story 2. Hollywood had found a new tool that was both powerful and affordable. Financial institutions, always conservative about technology, began adopting Linux for critical systems. The London Stock Exchange replaced their Windows-based system with Linux, dramatically improving performance and reliability. The New York Stock Exchange followed suit, using Linux to handle billions of dollars in trades every day. Banks around the world discovered that Linux was not only cheaper than traditional systems, but also more secure and reliable. But Linux's biggest triumph came in 2007 with the launch of Android. Google had been working secretly on a mobile operating system, and they chose Linux as its foundation. The first Android phone, the T-Mobile G1, launched in October 2008. It wasn't an immediate hit, but it started a revolution that would transform the mobile phone industry. Today, Android runs on over 2.5 billion devices worldwide, making Linux the most widely used operating system on the planet. Every Samsung Galaxy, every Google Pixel, every OnePlus phone runs Linux at its core. When people argue about iPhone versus Android, they're really debating iOS versus Linux. The server market tells an even more impressive story. Linux now runs on 96.3% of the world's top 1 million web servers. When you visit any major website, you're almost certainly connecting to a Linux server. Amazon Web Services, the world's largest cloud computing platform, runs primarily on Linux. Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, and other major cloud providers all rely heavily on Linux. The numbers are staggering when you really think about them. There are an estimated 500 million Linux servers running worldwide right now. The Linux Foundation calculated that recreating Linux today would require over 73,000 person-years of development effort and cost more than $10 billion. Yet this incredible piece of software is available for free to anyone who wants it. Linux has also become the operating system of choice for the world's most powerful computers. All of the top 500 supercomputers in the world run Linux. These machines, which cost millions of dollars and consume enormous amounts of electricity, depend on Linux to coordinate thousands of processors working together on complex calculations. Space exploration relies heavily on Linux too. NASA uses Linux to control the International Space Station, and it was Linux that powered the computer systems on the Mars rovers Spirit, Opportunity, and Curiosity. When humans return to the moon, they'll likely be using Linux-powered systems to navigate and communicate. The scientific community has embraced Linux enthusiastically. CERN, the European Physics Laboratory, uses Linux to control the Large Hadron Collider, the world's most powerful particle accelerator. The Human Genome Project used Linux clusters to analyze DNA sequences. Climate researchers use Linux supercomputers to model global warming and predict future weather patterns. What makes Linux truly special is its community. Over 15,000 developers from more than 1,400 companies contribute to Linux development. It's the largest collaborative software project in human history, involving programmers from every continent and dozens of countries. They work for companies like Intel, IBM, Google, and Samsung, but they all contribute to the same shared project. Linus Torvalds still oversees Linux development from his home office in Portland, Oregon. Now in his 50s, he remains actively involved in reviewing code changes and making final decisions about the direction of Linux. He's received numerous awards and honors, including the Millennium Technology Prize, often called the Nobel Prize of Technology. The economic impact of Linux is almost impossible to calculate. Companies save billions of dollars every year by using Linux instead of expensive commercial software. Entire industries have been built on Linux foundation. The smartphone revolution, cloud computing, and the modern internet all depend on Linux. Linux has also become a symbol of digital freedom and democracy. In countries where internet access is restricted, Linux provides tools for secure communication and privacy protection. Journalists and activists use Linux to protect their sources and avoid government surveillance. It represents the idea that technology should empower people, not control them. Looking at the future, Linux continues to evolve and adapt to new challenges. It powers Internet of Things devices, from smart thermostats to industrial sensors. Autonomous vehicles use Linux to process data from cameras and sensors. Artificial intelligence researchers prefer Linux for training machine learning models. The story of Linux proves that collaboration and open sharing can create something far greater than any single company or individual could achieve alone. When Linus Torvalds decided to give away his code for free, he started a movement that has transformed the world. Linux is everywhere around us, quietly powering the digital infrastructure that modern life depends on. Today, Linux truly is the operating system that powers our planet, and its influence will only continue to grow as technology becomes even more central to human civilization.